Some of you may have heard it's been a tough day for Xbox. They've had a bit of a rough one. They've had 9,000 people shown the door, fired, studios shuttered, teams let go. Not looking so good. And I don't just want to regurgitate the same news that I think most people are aware of by now. I want to talk about what I think is the absolute death of Xbox as anyone probably knew it. Any talk of them doing positive things in gaming, some people think maybe Game Pass is a great deal for developers. It helps indie developers, all this, so maybe there's some positives with Xbox. I think that is just not the case. I think that they absolutely represent the enshittification of gaming, and I know saying the death of Xbox and everything, like it sounds good, it sounds outlandish, but I think there is actual evidence of that now. It's pretty clear. And these 9,000 people let go. I mean, in an ideal world, you'd think it would, maybe it will just be all of the HR managers, the brand managers, and the pink hairs. Finally, Microsoft are maybe cleaning house. I don't think it is that, unfortunately. I think it is a clear shift in direction where there was a time where I was probably naive and I think that long-term, Microsoft are always going to be bad for gaming. They've shown that over the years. Even the Xbox itself was bad for gaming because it kind of killed PC gaming for the late 2000s, a bit after that as well. So I've never really liked the Xbox, despite owning one long ago for that reason. It was bad for PC gaming, gaming in general. I don't really like Microsoft in this space. But I still thought that with something like Game Pass, maybe it could lead to good things, because they'd have to diversify development somewhat. Because if they're relying on subscriptions, well, they can't just release 10 Call of Duty clones and call it a day, because then you'll just get the same audience. So they have to diversify. And by that term, I don't mean buy Sweet Baby Inc. or something and get them to do their thing. I mean genres of games, different genres of games. You have your shooters, you have your RPGs, maybe platformers. You bring back Banjo-Kazooie or something. You have your point-and-click adventures. They own King's Quest, Space Quest, and all the old series from Sierra now, all the 80s games and everything. So I thought maybe there'd be a lot of different games, and at least for a few years we might get some good single-player stuff. I think even that's off the table now, the chance of even a couple of decent years for Microsoft games. I think they're going to deliver nothing of worth, and it's very clear today with this news, with the layoffs. So just to recap super quickly, just for my memory, if anything. So they've closed a number of studios, or at least teams within studios. So I think in a lot of cases, they haven't killed a studio, but they basically just left it on life support for whatever reason. Is that better for optics, or is it better for their paperwork or something? It's like Raven Software, who've been a shell of their former self for years anyway, used to release great single-player shooters. Now they're just basically a Call of Duty support factory. So I don't even think they had that many people, and yet they've gotten cuts. Who knows how many people are left? Turn 10 Studios, one of the Forza ones, half the staff gone. Everwild by Rare, another studio that just seemed to be going nowhere. They had a surprise hit with Sea of Thieves. I don't know anyone who likes it, but apparently it's popular. I don't know exactly why, but that studio now is basically just a Sea of Thieves studio, and they'll release no new games. That's what it sounds like. Greg Mayles, who created Banjo-Kazooie, he left over this, so you can see the morale of the studio. He'd been there for 35 years. This is probably the biggest one, that an MMO was cancelled at ZeniMax Online, one of the Bethesda studios. It's a bigger deal than it sounds, and I'll explain why in a little bit, but it's evidence that this wasn't just Microsoft, Xbox shutting or cancelling the stuff that was in development hell. It's evidence of them just cancelling anything that doesn't help them in the short term. All Microsoft care about now is recovering their investment of buying Activision, Blizzard, all the money they've been spending. They want to make that back tenfold ASAP, and they don't care about anything else. They don't care about building up their reputation in gaming and again, a diverse number of IPs, diversifying their portfolio so that they have a bunch of different revenue streams in gaming. They don't care. They just care about their next quarter or two, and all they're going to be focused on, basically long-term, is the big IPs. A handful of them, whether it's Call of Duty, maybe Warcraft, similar ones to that. That's going to be it. They don't care about these massive amount of IPs that they own, and they own so many now. It's one of the reasons I'm sort of interested in this, is because they are the biggest video game publisher now. Again, don't really care about Xbox, but the Xbox brand as a third-party publisher, which is what they are now, that's kind of interesting. It's quite critical, the number of studios and IPs that they own and have bought over the years. Fallout, Elder Scrolls, obviously, Spyro, Crash. I mentioned other ones, smaller ones, like Banjo-Kazooie and other ones before. They own all of those now, and I think they're almost going to do nothing with them. They're just going to sit there, laying dormant, dead for years and years, and we'll never see anything. I dealt with that myself when I was a kid, when I used to be a fan of Monkey Island, mentioned Banjo-Kazooie a few times because it was a childhood favorite, and I just saw those series lay dead when they were owned by some corporation who had no plans because they weren't going to bring in the big money, and then the IP is just dead, basically. So, kind of sad, because I think that is what's going to happen. Perfect Dark is dead. That's another IP that will never go anywhere again because Microsoft don't care. Why would they care about Perfect Dark when they own Halo? They own Wolfenstein. They own, obviously, Call of Duty as well. So Perfect Dark is going to be dead forever because it's not as big as those other ones. They don't have to bother. And then a ton of other studios gone as well. Now, what is quite interesting, just looking at what people are saying, is here on this forum, there is a leaker who is very credible. I remember this person back when Microsoft were umming and ahhing about releasing games on the PS5, and there were some people saying, no, it's not going to happen, it's Sony fans coping, there's not going to be any Xbox games on there. No, they bought Activision Blizzard to help us and make my console more valuable. They wouldn't dare do that, devalue the Xbox so they can make more money now. They're thinking about the long term. And clearly that was a lie. They started with 4 games. I think they said they were going to release on the PS5. They said 4, and that was clearly bullshit as well, just PR to get them through that week or something. And then later, a month or two later, basically everything was going to come to PS5. Maybe even the Switch 2 as well. So there was never any 4 games. But this leaker was someone who was talking about that at the time and was totally accurate, very credible. People seem to trust this person. They were radio silent for like 6 months, and they've come back with this news to share some news of their own. And I think it's very interesting, and I think it really shows that this is the end of Xbox. And if you had any positive thoughts about them or where they might go with all the money invested and all those IPs, it's not going anywhere good for gamers. He says here, there's a lot that can and should be said about what went down with Xbox after Activision Blizzard was allowed to go through the acquisition. Many were too focused on Kotick and the board wanting to sell and how profitable it all was, and not what Activision Blizzard themselves felt about where the direction had led them. Many folks conflated the sale going through due to the civil and potential criminal cases, and while it was a contributing factor, the larger issue was that Activision Blizzard as a publisher was on the other side of their crested wave, and the board knew it. Now, this is, I think, important because it just shows, I think, how incompetent Microsoft have been in the gaming space. For their entire life, basically, as a gaming entity, being in the gaming space, they just make shit decision after shit decision, and it's especially true with their acquisitions. So, basically, every studio that Microsoft has ever bought, they buy them after they have peaked and after they've done their best work, and often they're starting to do bad work, and yet Microsoft still seem to buy them on reputation alone, or maybe for their IPs or something, I don't know. This was especially true 25 plus years ago, whenever it was, when they bought Rare. And obviously Rare, very well known, again, for Banjo-Kazooie and Donkey Kong and everything else, but they bought them, and then Rare never did anything good again, basically. They released the odd okay game, but they weren't like they were on the Nintendo 64 and the SNES, where like they were the company, especially in the West, who were absolutely smashing it. They had all the best games. Microsoft bought them, and it all turned to shit. Now, was it because Microsoft bought them, or did they just buy them too late once the company had started to sort of hemorrhage talent and the best people weren't there anymore? Could be a mixture of both, but it's a great example of Microsoft buying a studio and nothing good coming out of it. They've done this very, very often since. They bought the Gears of War IP, I believe, and basically every Gears of War game under Microsoft has been bad. The same for Halo. Bungie move on, Halo turns bad. Then you even have Bethesda, for instance, and all the more recent acquisitions. They buy Bethesda and they release Starfield, like their worst received single-player game since probably the 90s. You go back to like the Red Guards and games like that. That's how bad it was. So like, their worst game in 20 years, pretty much, and it's under Microsoft. And then you even have id Software, who released Doom the Dark Ages. Now, some people say it's quite good. Seems to be worse received than many of their other games. So it's just like, every studio seems to go downhill under Microsoft, and I've listed like 5 examples, but there's 25 at least. So every decision they make just seems to be bad. Instead of investing in studios themselves, and they have tried that. That was the initiative, was meant to be a brand new studio for Perfect Dark, and they've closed that. They produce nothing. But every studio they buy, it's after they've produced their best work. Microsoft think they'll just inherit it or something, but it doesn't work out like that. They don't look into these things, they don't manage these studios, and they never produce anything again. And it was the same with Activision Blizzard. They bought them at a time where they sucked. Like, World of Warcraft had well and truly gone downhill. It's not like they've done anything with the IP really since. There was that mobile game, which is funny. They closed the mobile game studio, Warcraft Rumble or whatever it is. So even that didn't work. So Warcraft as an IP isn't really going anywhere. Call of Duty, I mean, it still brings in the big bucks, but for how long for? And Microsoft expect the line to go up. Even if it stagnates, even if it's still a big profit maker, if the line's not going up, they're not going to be happy. That's why they trimmed a lot of people at King who make Candy Crush, because it's very profitable, but I don't think the line's going up. It's not improving. Microsoft think they buy these companies and they're just going to keep improving. They don't. They stagnate, and it's probably partly due to Microsoft's bad management, but also no plans, no creativity whatsoever. Even Bobby Kotick, who I don't think he has many fans, but he was right about one thing, is when he said that Microsoft should get out of gaming because they're not a creative company and they don't know what they're doing in this space. He said something to that effect. I think he was completely right about that. That Microsoft, everything that they touch just turns to shit. And I mean, I tried to be optimistic with them when they bought some of these other studios, the Bethesdas, and then everything after that. I thought, maybe, surely all this money invested, all these people, surely they can't screw this up completely. But they have, because the acquisition of Activision Blizzard, I think it came at a time when the pandemic was still in effect or something. So gaming had like peaked. The audience for games was at its biggest ever. And then when the pandemic was over and people were allowed outside again, gaming, it didn't dwindle massively, but it dwindled a little bit. And that was enough to scare Microsoft and totally change directions. So I think that Activision Blizzard, they were bought at a time when the plan was to make all their games Call of Duty exclusive on the Xbox console, build the ecosystem. It's like I said earlier, where I thought that Game Pass was all going to be about diversifying the portfolio, lots and lots of great single-player games, potentially. They were going to invest money in it. Maybe not forever, but we might get a few years of decent single-player games, no microtransactions. I do believe that actually was a plan at one stage, but that just totally changed once the lines weren't going up anymore on the economic chart. And Microsoft stepped in. Phil Spencer, I think he's just a patsy. I think he's a punching bag at this point. People are sort of blaming him. I don't like him. He's an idiot. He's just made bad decisions forever, basically. But I don't think he is the big problem now. He's just a figurehead. It's the head honchos of Microsoft who are making these decisions. Phil doesn't have any say, basically. No one cares about Phil. It's people above him now making the decisions. So I do think the strategy changed, moving away from Game Pass, which was a total failure, was continuing to fail, hemorrhage money. Now it's not about that. In fact, Microsoft care much more about selling games on the PS5, on PC. They don't even want people to buy them on Xbox, because it's going to cause problems in the future when they want to switch Xbox off. Because it's a big flop and no one buys Xboxes, but they don't want to turn it off because then they're going to be worried about, oh no, then the customers are going to be very concerned that they've basically wasted all their time and money investing in a digital library with Microsoft, with Xbox. We don't really want to do that. That's the only reason that they haven't formally killed the Xbox console at this point. They want people just to buy their games on other devices, because now it is just about the line going up ASAP. They changed strategies completely with the Activision Blizzard purchase, and it's just about the big IPs. It's just about, we need to make money right now. That's what their strategy is all about now. Nothing else matters, which is why they're starting these layoffs and cancelling games and everything like that. But we'll continue here. It wasn't just that Blizzard was facing some major headwinds, or that COD's revenue stream, while profitable, had reached an unsustainable level of overhead and tech debt that eventually would need to be addressed. The real issue was that Activision Blizzard as a publisher had long since moved past the point of even bothering to diversify their portfolio, instead focusing on an ever-increasing smaller number of projects' IPs that were having solid returns. Basically saying that Activision Blizzard had got to a point where it was basically just all Call of Duty and maybe a bit of World of Warcraft. There was basically nothing else that they were working on. And when you shrink what you're doing, because remember they used to do like Crash Bandicoot 4 and the Insane Trilogy, and there were some other smaller projects in amongst that as well. They basically killed all of that, and it was just all in on the Call of Duties. So you can understand why Bobby Kotick sold. I mean, sure, there was the sexual allegation scandal for the studio, stealing breast milk and all the bad PR and all that. But that aside, there were still economic problems where they realized, Activision, that, hey, if we have just one Call of Duty game flop, it's over. Like, the whole company's gone, basically, because they take a few years to make, and once the interest is even lost a little bit, the line's never going up again, investors will be shit scared and they'll pull out, and then the whole company just falls over. That's happening a lot for gaming in the West, but it's especially true with Activision at that time. And just ending this, what this leaker was saying, with the ABK deal going through, many leaders in ABK found very welcome homes at Microsoft, especially since their leadership was viewed as being so much more successful than Microsoft. So it absolutely doesn't surprise me that all we've gotten since the deal closed was a Microsoft who is increasingly treating their portfolio like Activision Blizzard treated theirs. It's kind of interesting, because what it sounds like here, and again, this is a leaker, it's not a random person, there is some credibility here. It could be true. I think it is true. Maybe it isn't, but I'm going to treat it just about as truth. It sounds like Activision knew they had a massive problem, and it's like, we need to jump shit now, collect our money, get the golden parachutes, quick, smart, because eventually this is all just going to fall over. This isn't sustainable. And then Microsoft, the geniuses that they are in gaming, the gaming side and above, they bought them thinking, these guys are geniuses. Oh my god, we need to do exactly what they're doing. Even though Activision, with all their experience, knew this wasn't going to be sustainable forever and it was going to fall over. Microsoft thought, this is great, this is what gaming should be. A handful of IPs, one or two big IPs, invest billions, and then if it all goes belly up, we'll deal with that tomorrow, basically. Because there's no diversification, there's no building of new IPs, trying any new ideas whatsoever. It's just the sure things that have been around for 20 years, like Call of Duty and maybe, I guess, Halo. They're having another go at Halo, even though it's been flopping for the last 15 years, basically. Obviously, they're going to try Elder Scrolls with Bethesda, even though they're well past it and over the hill. But it's just going to be a handful of these very big IPs. Everything else can turn to dust for all they care. So all these smaller studios that Microsoft have, the Double Fines, Obsidian to an extent, Inxile. I mean, these are the sort of studios that have, at least at a point in time, have produced games that I care about and I like. So I'm sort of interested to see, are they ever going to recover? Is anything going to be done with them? I don't think so. I think they're all on borrowed time. And any of those studios that are working on smaller IPs that aren't just about guaranteed big money makers, their time could be running out very quickly. I think the ones that have games to release, like Inxile with Clockwork Revolution, they'll probably be allowed to release their game. But they could very easily just go the way of Tango and these other studios that get closed, even if they release a relatively well-received, relatively well-successful game. Once it comes out, they could just be gone. We saw this with Embracer Group not that long ago, where the studios they were closing were usually the ones that didn't have a game to release anytime soon. The ones that did, they'll be allowed to release it, and then they might just get closed. That happened to the Alone in the Dark studio last year at some point. Even though that game was pretty well received by people, it may not have sold well, but there was something to work with. I think it's just going to be the same template with Microsoft. So I think you're going to start to see these studios disappear. Obsidian, maybe they deserve it. They've been releasing rubbish for quite some time. Probably in Inxile. I don't know how Double Fine is even still there. You've got Arkane. They've got Blade in the works. What happens after that? Microsoft don't care about Dishonored or whatever. It sold what? Like a few million copies? They don't care. They only care about games that are going to sell 25 plus million copies. The Call of Duties and so on. They're the big ones that are going to make the line go up. That's all they care about. And these huge conglomerates, they don't just turn around and do all this at once. It takes time, but we're seeing it in real time. Every 3-6 months, there's more news, despite them telling you about the profits and everything's bliss at Microsoft. Every 6 months, they close a bunch of teams and they lay off a whole bunch of people at once. This is like clockwork. They've been doing this on pretty much a regular schedule for a while, and it's going to continue. They're going to keep doing this. It doesn't matter what they say. I mean, they've been lying for years. Phil Spencer gets on some interview somewhere and then he weaselly words. Oh no, we're not going to release the games on PS5 tomorrow, so technically we're not lying, even though a week or two later there's announcements of basically every game coming to PS5. He's been pulling that crap for his whole career, basically. He's not to be trusted, not to be listened to. Same with anyone else at Microsoft. They don't care. They don't care about games. And again, this is happening just a lot in the West, where they just do not care about the long-term health of the gaming division, the health of the business, like a Nintendo or something. They just care about the next quarter. Be damned what the consequences might be in a decade when Call of Duty is finally losing relevance and all that. They don't care. That's someone else's problem in 10 years' time. For now, they just care about the now. They care about how much money they're going to make at the end of the month, at the end of the quarter. That is literally it, which is why often a lot of these decisions don't make any sense. It's like, well, why are you cancelling Everwild now? It's been in development for 10 years. Did something happen? Like last week, that was a big problem. Why are you cancelling it now? It doesn't really work like that with these big conglomerates. They might have made the decision to cancel Everwild years ago, and it's just now with their slow conveyor belt timing and everything that now it's the time to do it. There's no rhyme or reason or logic really. It's just how slow these big ships move and turn around. It's a very slow process, but we're seeing that strategy now, that things have massively changed. They don't care about Game Pass. They don't care about the Xbox console whatsoever. I touched on that a bit before. That the Xbox console is obviously over. Everyone pretty much knows that. It's just purely that. And in my opinion, the reason they're not going to just officially end the Xbox console is they don't want to be the ones who have to front up and say, hey, we're shutting this down. You're going to lose access to your digital libraries, basically. You're going to have nothing. There's going to be no new games for it, so you'd be wasting your time investing. And those of you who did invest, you made a mistake. You should have gone to PC or PS5 years ago. You were really stupid coming along the ride with us. We don't know what we're doing. They don't want to be the ones who have to say that, so they're going to just continue the charade of pretending that Xbox is a thing. We've seen a lot of credible leaks that the next Xbox console is basically just going to be a PC. You can run Steam on it, and whether the Xbox version is even a real Xbox console version or if it's basically just the PC version running on some third-party system with an Xbox logo, seems to be that. And I really think the only reason they're doing that is not because they think it's going to be profitable, but they just don't want to have to admit that Xbox is dead because they know it's going to cause a lot of problems for them. That could lead to regulations in gaming that could affect them and bigger problems. They might have decided it's just cheaper to pretend and just use smoke and mirrors to pretend Xbox is still a real thing, the console side. They're a third-party publisher now. Couple of quick things. So I touched on the ZeniMax MMO that got cancelled. Now, the main guy at ZeniMax Online, he's actually left the company after 18 years, so he's gone, he's done his farewell message. I think he was the one who used to go up on stage at all the E3s or events and talk about the Elder Scrolls Online. So he was sort of the main guy there. He is now gone. And the reason it's interesting is he was heading up, I believe, that new MMO. That was like his big thing. He was obviously very excited about it. Now, you hear the news that they cancel that MMO, you probably just assume, it was probably just development hell, it was going nowhere. Microsoft got rid of it like they got rid of Perfect Dark and Everwild, that also looked to be in development hell. But according to the same leaker I was talking about, he said that is definitely not the case. In fact, he says when it begins to come out just how fucking incredible the title these guys and this guy who left was working on, they got axed today, you're going to be very surprised. That game had some of the best reactions from folks who played it as a playtest for a multiplayer-focused title that I'd heard from in years. It takes an absolute truckload to have folks heap praise on a multiplayer playtest in model times. Probably because most of them are the same. It all just feels too similar. People copying each other, trying to chase trends. But apparently this was very good. This game would have been spectacular. Typically in situations where publicly known games get cancelled, there's this sense in the fan base of the thing we didn't get, it could have been so incredible. People did that with Scalebound, which was going to be an Xbox game. Why did they cancel it? It was going to be the best thing ever. And people finger point among executives who just didn't get it, blah, 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 fear of missing out. Well, this is one of the cancelled games that by literally every account sounded like it would have been a slam dunk, in literally every sense. And I gotta be honest, I don't really care that much about multiplayer games anymore. I don't play that many of them, but I've been a fan of MMOs in the past, and out of all the multiplayer games out there, a great MMO is probably the most likely one to get me onto it, out of any of these sorts of games. So, if it was genuinely spectacular, and maybe it was, like, one of the first innovative MMOs that wasn't just copying WoW 20 years later, like most of them do, maybe it was genuinely incredible. This leaker seems to say it was. And I only mention this because I think it's a good example that Microsoft are not just cancelling the duds, the games that are obviously in development hell, just get them out of here. They are just cancelling anything that they don't think is going to be the next Call of Duty and it's going to make them billions upon billions of dollars. Anything that isn't that is no longer safe under Microsoft. And the reason for that, the reason we know that, is because that would have been the case under Activision. And they are looking to replicate Activision Blizzard King. They're copying that business model where they get rid of all the smaller IPs that aren't big money makers. They put everything into the handful of big ones. They invest everything, hoping it's just, this is going to be the next big thing forever and we're going to make the trillions of dollars. Anything else, who cares? I mean, we could release some single player game that could be beloved, it could be fun, it could innovate. Maybe that pays off in 10 years for us because now we have so many great IPs. They don't care about that. They don't care about what happens in 10 years. They just care about what happens right now. They'll worry about the next quarter next time. For now, we just need the money, all the money now. So it's all in on Call of Duty, these IPs that aren't creative. They're absolutely stale, but people still seem to buy them. I don't know who these people are, but they do, and they bring in the money, apparently. But it's not going to last forever. Activision knew that, but Xbox leadership, Microsoft leadership are stupid. They're just thinking of the now. It will catch up with them, but they don't care. They'll probably just get out of it by then. They'll escape when things actually get bad. That's just how it goes. I'll just end on this, slightly off topic to all of that, but I just found this hilarious. Chris Avellone, actual game developer responsible for great RPGs, Planescape Torment, Knights of the Old Republic 2, New Vegas, many others. He was calling this out and he said, sending good thoughts to those affected by the bizarre Microsoft layoffs and hope you find new jobs soon. As for mouthpieces like Jez Corden and Clobrill, who are just Xbox shills for years and years, we kind of knew that this was happening, that Xbox was just getting destroyed from the inside. They were cancelling potentially good games. They don't know what they're doing. These clowns, there's a lot of them, kept saying, no, it's all outrage farmers who don't know what they're talking about. No, it's all good at Microsoft. They're here for gamers. They're doing a great thing. Game Pass, it's for the gamers. It's going to lead to great things. And now we're here where it's very clear that's not the case. They're in just insane levels of damage control. They've done this a million times where it's like, this is a big day for Xbox. They need to show that they're going to listen to customers and improve. And this might be the 18th time that I'm saying this, but we're still going to give them the benefit of the doubt. It's that sort of crap. I don't know if they're paid or if they just sort of built their, their profile. I don't know if they're paid or they just built their followings here on Twitter off Xbox related news. So they're sort of stuck. Feel sorry for them if that's the case, but basically, Chris goes on to say that they thrive like remorse on the underbelly of Xbox news. You two can fuck right off, you pathetic shills. For the record, and as showcase of their integrity, both were staunch supporters of various Xbox titles that were clearly in trouble, but then did everything they could to spin and bury any trace of bad news. One example being Avowed. Yeah, and I kind of remember all the supposed positive talk about Avowed, and I'm sure they'll do it about the Outer Worlds too. I think people have had enough. They've just seen that these companies don't know what they're doing, whether it's Microsoft or many of the studios underneath them who just, they've been managed poorly for the longest time. Just tell the truth. Being a mouthpiece won't save you when the rest of the body dies. So I think it's a good lesson from Chris that Xbox are fucked. Anyone saying that's not the case, no, they're playing 4D chess, they know what they're doing, and they're going to come out the other side. It's not going to happen. Things are only going to get worse for Xbox, and it's kind of sad because of all those IPs that they own and that they bought over the years, because a lot of them are just going to stay dead. I think what's clear, the only good thing that can come out of it is people start to see, just forget about those IPs, just think about why you liked those games, the genre, what they did, and you're going to have to get those experiences out of new IPs. You can't rely on nostalgia. It's like Expedition 33 is a good example, where it's just a great game. It's now going to become a big series, but it's a new thing, and it's going to be new things that are going to be what's most positive in gaming going forward. Larian's the same. They're moving on from Baldur's Gate, obviously. They'll probably do their own thing, and that's what's going to be best. It's not going to be anything shat out by Xbox and probably even the other ones like PlayStation and so on as well. But we'll leave it there. Thanks for listening. I'll see you on the next one. Cheers. Bye.